So in today's video, we're taking a look at the 90L tank. We're going to be talking about the importance of maintaining and trimming your plants. So what's going on, guys? Joseph from H2O Plants here. And in this tank, I've kind of let it go. It was set up back, I would say, in May, so it's been about 5 months now. And ever since Reefapalooza, which was in June, towards the end of June, we haven't really done much with the tank, kind of set it back up. And really, that's it. I've kind of left it be. Now, we did have a problem with Gibba, which I've gone over in a previous video with the desert tank. You can click up top if you want to check out that video and learn more about Gibba. But basically, Gibba was infecting the back area of the tank, and it was mainly because these stems, the Rotella Vietnam, those somehow had it on it when I put them in the tank. And it kind of just took over a little bit in here. But I've been able to maintain control of it. I'm just waiting for it to disappear to do some changes to this tank. The reason being is the Gibba seems to be lodged in the substrate towards the back of the tank, and it's in the kind of dwarf hairgrass, and it's really difficult to get that out. So if I was to rip up the dwarf hairgrass and plant something new like I want to back there, it's going to create an issue, so we're going to just kind of let it be. Now, it's been about 5 months that I've been looking at the tank, and I really needed a trim and some maintenance done to the tank, so that's what I did this past weekend. So first things first is all the moss that I had growing out looking phenomenal actually turned brown. The reason being is I used some algae fix in this tank to try and cure some of the hair algae that was growing on the rocks, and it wasn't really coming off easily, so I decided to resort to chemical use. And that chemical does kill some sorts of moss, and it did wind up turning all the moss hair brown. Now, we will take a closer look, but actually most of the moss is starting to come back. After I remove the bulk of it, there's a lot of new fronds that are sprouting up that are pure green, so just kind of goes to show the resiliency in moss. Even if you think it may be dead, if it's not black and it's just brown, typically it may come back. Now, what else did we do? Well, we trimmed the Rotella Vietnam. That I was letting go for a very long time. It was really kind of just out there, and so I had to trim it back. I stuffed it in some areas here just to kind of fill in some gaps. It looks really good. On top of that, I trimmed down the dwarf hairgrass. Now, this is really where I want to spend a little bit of time talking about trimming the carpet plants. The reason being is when you trim a plant and you cut it, you encourage new growth, both in leaf growth and root growth. The reason being is that you're telling the plant, oh, you know what, I don't like the way you're growing, so it needs to spread out and it needs to put down more roots because it needs to become more established because now you've affected the way the plant grows. You basically kind of traumatized it a little bit, and it says, uh-oh, I'm in trouble, let me work on some things to really make sure I survive. So what you do is when you trim carpeting plants like hairgrass, Monte Carlo, four-leaf clover, you trim those, you're encouraging it to grow more side shoots and more roots. This is important for a thick carpet. Because right now, while this may look thick, there is a lot of patchiness in between some of these areas, and it should be a bit more filled in. The reason why it isn't is because I haven't really trimmed it. This is the first trim we did of. Now, being that the tank has this giant rock structure here, it was a little bit difficult to get in and really trim the carpeting plant behind, and as well as like in some of these crevices. So those are just going to kind of be, but I really wanted to trim down the front of the tank because that's where the main bulk of the carpeting plant is. Then this is dwarf hairgrass. Now, we do have bits of brown moss that has made its way into the carpet just because as I trimmed or ripped up pieces of the moss, pieces flew around and kind of got trapped down in there. So periodically I'm going to go through and try and remove as much as I possibly can, but there's some here and there, so eventually that'll hopefully work its way out. I'll be able to get all of it out in time. All in all though, this tank is really easy. I haven't done much. I've literally just left it be. I top it off when it's low on water, but overall there's not a whole lot that needs to be done to it, and it's growing in quite well. All in all, within probably a month's time, this carpet will really thicken up and look bright green, more so than its kind of brownish tinge it has right now. One, because of the moss, and two, a lot of dead bits of the dwarf hairgrass. And here's another reason why you want to trim plants like this, is because when you trim your carpet, you're allowing the light to get down and focus on other leaves. When you have a lot of leaves that are kind of overcrowding each other, that can hinder growth on other plants. So it's really important that if you're going for this nice aesthetic look with like a full carpet, that you get in there and you trim often. You can never really trim the plants too much unless you're chopping them all the way down to like their root structure. Then you're probably overdoing it. But if you chop them down, say they're 2-3 inches tall, you chop them down to 1.5 inches, let them grow back to 2 inches, chop them again. You're doing the plant good because now it's going to spread out. And you got to kind of think of this from nature's aspect. In the wild, whether it's aquatic plants or out in the field, you'll have animals or creatures that kind of trample these plants and influence those kind of regeneration processes that the plant goes through. It says, oh, I got stepped on, let me produce more stuff so I don't die. And it's kind of a defense mechanism or a survival mechanism for the plant to continue to live. And with stems, I chopped these stems down for the Rotala Vietnam because I really wanted to create a nice bush, and it wasn't doing that because there's not enough. But now that I chopped each one of those stems down, each one of those stems is going to produce 2 or more new offshoots. So it'll be even more plants there to fill in that area, and then I'm going to chop them down again, and then they'll continue to sprout another 2 and another 2 and another 2 until there's just a really dense bush of that plant there in the middle. So that's what I'm really trying to get to. Overall though, it's only been a couple of days since I did all the abandons, and the tank is looking great only after a couple of days, but we'll have to give it a couple more weeks and we'll do another update at that time to kind of fill you guys in on this. But if you guys learned something new here today or enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button to show me that you did. Also, drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the tank, what your kind of trimming schedule is if you have one. I know I tend to let it kind of just go off on its own, and I trim it when I think it needs to be done, but if I only had 1 or 2 tanks, I'd probably be more focused on them and doing it every so often rather than as I feel like it. If you're new here, consider hitting the subscribe button. And if you want to check out our last video that we did on our $1,000 aquarium plants, you can click over there. And if you want to check out our update video on the other tanks in the room, you can click right there. And I'll see you guys next time.